All right, so we are still reading Treatise on White Magic. We are starting on page 33, section B, the soul, the mediator, or the middle principle. Ah, there's Franco too. And we're going to do a little backtracking from the last reading. I want to come back through some of this and I want to add some information. And because obviously the soul is something that should be within our sights that we're looking towards getting to, interacting with. So if we could better understand what it is, it might help. So,
Daddy, look who's on.
Okay, so the soul, and I'm starting in the middle page of 33. There are two angles or points of view from which the nature of the soul must be grasped. One is the aspect of the soul in relationship to the fourth kingdom in nature, the human kingdom, and the other that of the subhuman kingdoms in nature, which must be reflected remembered are reflections of the three higher kingdoms. And so when we talk about the subhuman kingdoms, they're reflections of the three higher. And the chart, anybody and everybody got their chart on page 117? You know, that Donnie sent?
Yeah, gotta pull it up real quick.
Yeah, with the, so that we kind of have an idea of where we're at in those kingdoms, because everything is a reflection of a reflection of a reflection going downward from the top originally. And that's what they're talking about there.
Do you think it would be helpful to share the chart on the screen while we talk through it? Or?
It's okay. Does everybody have one, or should we, how do you want to do that?
Yeah, Donnie, if you have it, I think you can screen share it, can't you? So everyone can just look at it while we're referring to it.
Hold on a second. No. No.
Okay. So let's start by locating where the soul sits in this chart. And so when you got the arrow, Donnie, can you point to it, because it's over in the mental level?
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out how to get this stuff out of the way. I don't know how to do it. How do I keep this? Is the question.
Well, should we just work with that for a while as the visual?
There you go.
Okay, but you got
Is that good now?
Pardon?
Can you see the whole picture now?
I can. Anybody else can?
There it is.
Yeah. All right. So take your little arrow and go up to where the soul is, which actually says ego, and it's the little triangle. All right. So if we look at this chart, and he names it on the bottom, the Constitution of Man. These are all your components in the abstract. It's on the mental level and it's on level number 3 of 7 levels. And we see the little drop down, straight arrow down. And for anybody who's got Annie Besant's book there, why don't you open it to page 70 and you're going to see part of that same chart.
They're not all the same, apparently.
Oh, maybe not. And this is a book too. This isn't online.
Yeah, I've got the book, but it's
I have
not.
a
page
book,
70.
but there's no charts in it.
Oh, page 56.
No, page 70. Don't you have, the web of life is what I'm looking for.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's-
it's in my 56.
All right. I'm looking to see if you can find it in the index.
It's my 56 as well.
All right. Yeah, so,
Because mine is it's a Scholar's Select reprint of an old book, so I think you probably have the original.
well, I got a hard copy, but I'm not sure it was the original. I have the original too, but I'm not opening it. My pages are falling out of it. It was printed in 1904 or something like that. But if for anybody who's got the book who can't find it, if you go to the index, it's the Web of Life and then whatever page it is. So these, so you've got the diagram, correct, on the study of consciousness also?
Yes.
Yeah, with the Roman numeral. So that is level 5. That's just an expansion of things. We've got the larger triangle on the top. And then we've got level 7, 6, 5. And then it's the spiritual triad. It's coming down from the Buddhic plane. That's us. This is where we get, this is a basic diagram of us as we come down from the Buddhic plane. In other words, when you got to stash you somewhere when you're not alive, and it goes up and then on an incarnation. So in fact, let me read a little bit of this and then I'm coming back to this soul because I'm just trying to, and there's some interesting ideas in this one also. It's been said the connection with the spiritual triad is through Buddhic matter. Spiritual triad is that larger triangle that's in the middle of the big page if we're looking at the screen, or it's the triangle which she's got just a portion of this chart. And this is indicated in the diagram by the dotted line, which connects the atoms coming down from the line in the Buddhic plane, not from the monastic, which is the mental plane, which is plane number 5. It is a Buddhic matter that is spun. And this is something that I just want you guys to be able to visualize. Is spun the marvelous web of life, which supports and vivifies all of our bodies. If the bodies be looked at in the Buddhic vision, they'll all disappear, and in their place is seen a shimmering golden web of inconceivable fineness and delicate beauty, a tracery of all their parts in a network with minute meshes. This is formed of Buddhic matter, and within these meshes, the coarser atoms are built together. Closer inspection shows that the whole network is formed of a single thread, which is a prolongation of the Sutratma, and the Sutratma is the one that comes down and builds the form for us in each incarnation. And these are Eastern terms, but we do have to adjust to some of them because we don't probably even have that ideology in the West yet. During the antenatal life of the babe, this thread grows out from the permanent physical atom. And that permanent physical and branches out in every direction, the growth continuing until the physical body is full grown during physical life, following all its branches and meshes, and at death it is withdrawn, leaving the particles of the body to scatter. It may be watched slowly disentangling itself from the dense physical matter, the breath of life accompanying it and drawing itself together in the heart around the permanent atom. And as it withdraws, the deserted limbs grow cold. Its absence makes the death chill, and the golden violet flame of life breath is seen shining around it in the heart, and the flame and the golden web of life and the permanent atom rise along the secondary Sushumna Nadi to the head into the third ventricle of the brain. This is the death process of leaving, all of this vitality leaving. The eyes glaze as the web life draws itself away, and the whole of it is collected around the permanent atom in the third ventricle. Then the whole rises slowly to a point of junction of the parietal and occipital, I'm not reading that right, sutures, and leaves the physical body dead. It thus surrounds the permanent atom like a golden shell, recalling the closely woven cocoon of the silkworm, to remain enshrouding till the building of the new physical body again demands its unfolding, meaning when it's going to incarnate again. And the same procedure it follows with the astral and the mentical particles. So I'm going to leave that there for a minute. When my father was in the process of dying, and we won't cover it here, but the soul will sound a note, and that is the indication that it's time to withdraw from the body and that energy go back up into the soul. And somewhere in this material, it'll say it can be anywhere from 6 months to a few hours before this actual leaving occurs. So my father was in the hospital, and I was actually driving back to Minnesota at the time, and my sister's on the phone with me, and he was, I think he went in simply because it was like a case of diarrhea or something where they couldn't stop it or whatever it was. Anyway, so she's telling me, she's saying, look, he gets up, and they'll have the little portable potty very close to where he is. But she said, he'll get up, he'll go, and then he'll get back in bed, but his temperature has dropped to 95. And it takes him about 45 minutes to come back up to the normal temperature and for everything to kind of settle back in again. And she can hear kind of this sound. And I said, but Robin, his etheric web is separating from his body, and that's what's happening. So when he gets up, it's in the process of leaving, and he goes right through exactly what she's talking about here, that the loss of the temperature, and you can hear it. There's a little bit of a death rattle that you'll hear sometimes sound wise, because they're leaving the body. One of these, and I'm not sure I'm going to get to exactly which one it is, talks about the, I don't know exactly where. But anyway, so that's the process of how, when the child is in the womb, it's this same, and it's a golden thread. When you build the anacorona, it's white, but this one is golden. And so it's all one thread. The whole web and pattern of what your physical structure is built on is on this one web. And and he talks about, or else it's DK, one of the two, that you leave out of the head. And so I made a remark. I haven't seen that many people die where I'm actually there when when they leave in the hospital bed. They haven't been moved yet by anybody or adjusted. But the ones I've seen, they've gone out the head. I mean, it's the greatest, oh, what would you call it? Facelift you could ever seen. There's not a wrinkle left in the face. All of that is gone, and their body is just, you can just see how they left. I don't know if any of the others of you seen someone who's in like a hospital situation or something when they have died at that point in time.
We just got you back. We lost you for about 4 seconds.
Okay, so my question, so where did you lose me?
You
So
said they were leaving out the head.
okay. So anyway, my question is, has anyone else witnessed that in the hospital or seen that process? Okay. So I commented in a group and they said, oh no, that you go out, you know, the solar plexus, and which I have not seen that happen. But in some of this material, he indicates that if you haven't, if you're not developing in this upper portion of your body to start with, if you aren't making these transitions yet, and you're still basically functioning in the astral plane and out the solar plexus, then you will leave that way, because you haven't made the connection to be able to get all this energy and be functioning up here very actively, you know, kind of thing. So anyway, but and that's why sometimes, I don't know if you've ever heard anybody talk about the death rattle. Of course, I don't know how separate we are now from when I was younger. You know, you were closer to all this stuff because probably a lot of times it either happened at home or you saw people as they were passing, if you will. Franco? Comment.
I'm just listening in.
Okay, well, now
But
you shake your head. I thought maybe you were,
I'm agreeing with you.
yeah, okay, because it's,
Jimmy, my husband, has seen it a bunch of times, and he's talked to me about the death rattle and like how it's just like crazy the way the body will make that sound, and then it just like a whoosh, and then they're gone. He's like, it's just, it's crazy to see. Like I've never been around someone as they're passing. Like I've been there before and after, but like in the moment, I've never been there. But the way he describes it, it's like you can tell that they're leaving. Yeah, and then you just have a show. Yeah.
So yeah, it's how it sounds. It sounds like if you were completely healthy, no problems, and then like you kind of cross-reference the sound, I guess that would be comparable as if you had like really bad bronchitis and you can just hear that crackling phlegm in your chest. It's kind of like that, and then ends with just like just a breath, but with no like inhalation afterwards, like crackle, crackle, and then that's it. And then the just like what Carla was saying, like all the tension and in any part of the face or whatever, everything is smooth. So it doesn't even look like the person afterwards. It looks like just, you know, like a freaking Madame Tussauds wax figure, you know?
yeah, the animation is gone.
Yeah.
But for me, the first time I read this about that all being one thread, you know, built. And in a sense, the indicativeness of that is the evolution also, because originally there would have been a lot less thread. And as we refine, as we develop, as all of our capacities develop, so on and so forth, then you're going to have that thread become far more complicated and involved. So, because all of this is ultimately going to follow science, the material in these books, so on and so forth. It's, you're not going to exclude a whole lot of anything in this material when you come to understand it.
I'm not trying to be weird, but this is gonna sound weird. The nipples make sense now.
The what?
Nipple, the nipple makes sense now. It makes sense how it would be drawn, like one, it would have to be continuous. It has to be. Otherwise, it needs to be there. That's what I'm saying.
The nipple?
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it has to be there. It's because of the way we're built. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, you
Yeah.
mean for like you? Because I know why I
Yeah.
have nipple.
Yeah, no, I mean, it has to be here for us too. Based on this, what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's weird, I know, but my mind went, I was like, I had a question about that a long time ago, and now it makes sense. Sorry.
I feel like there's nothing weird. Like, it's not weird. To me, it's like,
Okay, well, it's
we're not talking about anything. We are the weirdos, dude. So it's normal.
Man.
It's okay that I have 3 heads because I'm with all my friends that have 3 heads.
Nipple on, my brother.
Yeah.
Okay.
On a separate note, I'll throw this out there. I saw DK mention that the eyeball and the nerve that runs to the eyeball is a correlation or an analogy to the anacorona somewhere. Building the anacorona.
Oh, the building of it?
Yeah, that was really cool.
Yeah, except you have to build that anachrona. As long as we're looking at that chart for a minute.
I don't know how to yet do this that well. Sorry.
That's okay.
I'm looking at one on the computer.
Okay, so you've got the little straight line that goes up, but it does not connect to that little triangle, which is representative of the ego or the soul. Can you see that?
You have to build the bridge.
You have to build a bridge. You see that, Tom? That little that little blank spot? That is what we each individually have to do to build that bridge to make a connection with the soul and have a conscious connection with it. That is part of initiation number 3. It occurs during that process, but we have to work to build that bridge. That's what people who are just kind of sitting on their laurels are doing. The people who want to move a little faster, that's the activity level. That is and that's done on the mental level. It's done with the mind. So a whole lot of all of this material from DK is about building that bridge and getting to a point where you want to build the bridge and where it is occurring. And the other point too, I was going to say is sometimes I'll say something about seeing something. And a lot of times it's subjective seeing. It is like in the mind's eye, or if you're connected at the moment you're seeing something, you may very well be dealing with seeing in the etheric, okay? Or you're getting symbology of something that flashes to you and the symbols come to you, you see the picture in your mind. I'm pretty sure that it draws on whatever symbologies you have in your data bank to pull from. to try to convey to you this, that, or whatever else it is. But a lot of times early on, well, and further along too, because once you hit the third initiation, you are dealing subjectively, you're dealing mentally now. You're not necessarily dealing with physical things. It's all happening up in here. And then that's when you wonder if you're really crazy, or if that really did happen, or if this or that makes sense. Okay. And so you can't tag that to anybody else's experiences. They're yours. And eventually you come to figure out they are, once you start getting a good read, because he talks about once you start gathering information from the Buddhic plane, he makes the note that that information would be infallible. And so when you think about it, and the Buddhic plane is the plane of pure reason, then yes, if you get the information from that level, it is pure reason, which means that everything is lined up and accurate. Okay. But getting information from the astral plane and expecting that information to be infallible is, I mean, it's like, you can't count on any of that in that regard. So yeah, everybody, yeah, has their own symbols. I expect that there are images drawn from their own data bank. I don't know, am I kind of conveying what I want to point out there?
By symbols, what do you mean by symbols? Symbols can be more than just a picture, right? Or
Yeah, whatever images get projected in your mind to convey whatever you're actually well, it shouldn't be a deducing, I guess. It's just whatever you're experiencing, because, you know, as he indicates, once you get past a certain point here, you yeah, you just can't, you don't have anything tangible to attach it to, because you're not dealing with the physical anymore. You're dealing with the subjective levels, the mental levels. Sometimes things are trying to be conveyed to your mental realm, and it can't even really effectively pick it up. It's not attuned to it, but it's got to convey some information to you somehow. So it may throw out a set of.
Could it be more than a symbol, more like a sign then too, or is that, you know?
Yeah, no, it can be a sign too. All I'm saying is that there's a point at which, this is a really bad analogy, but if you're walking down the road and you stumble, you can look down and you can pretty much guarantee there's a rock or something there that you stumbled over, because it's tangible. You're in the lower 3 dimensions and you're functioning there. When you start dealing in that mental realm and you're gathering information, and the whole goal of this is for your mental vehicle to become more fine-tuned and more refined, and he's got better words than that, but so that you can discern the quality and the information in that energy, that more refined energy, that's not like a rock. It's got to convey something to you. So it might send you a symbolic picture, and then you're going to deduce from it what you think it meant. And believe me, sometimes your deductions are not correct in terms of your interpretations, where actually a lot of this information in the Bailey books gives you a clue at that point when you start reading through it. Donnie, you've read enough of it to know there's this, that, and everything else is there. But he talks about the different levels of experience and some of what you might experience at that point. So Does that answer it, Bull?
That was Frank, and yeah,
Oh, I'm sorry.
that's
Can't
fine.
tell.
No, yeah.
You guys
So,
do
yeah.
seem a lot alike. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
And
need to
all
start
I'm,
sounding more like a man then.
yeah, all I'm saying is that you're gonna find as you move up into more mental realms and you do have information being conveyed to you, it's gonna be in the mental realm. And so one can say, geez, did I imagine that? Or did that really happen? Or did I really see or experience that? And so understand that you're going to have that transition, and not everything's going to hit you over the head to make you understand this or that. So so I'm going to leave Besant for the moment. I'm coming back to the first, and that because I just want you to understand more about the soul, because it's not, for the most part, what we've been led to believe, other than we've always been reminded it's here and we have one, and we didn't want anybody to steal it. That's
Don't
what we
sell
did
it.
when we were young, huh?
And don't sell it.
Yeah, and don't sell it, right? Oh, so we got that point, and that's important. In fact, that's one of the things when you were asking me a question today about the young kids now, that what kind of basic training should they have when they're young? I mean, we're working off of for the most part, Christianity as a background. We had it. Doesn't matter if we left it later or whatever, but we had the basic foundation of what this material is based on also, is that you've got a soul, there was a Christ, there is a process, there is a kingdom of heaven, etc., etc. You've got the basics. So if you don't have that when you're younger, then the question is, what does it produce or not produce? But considering we're pulling all of that out, then we get a generation that doesn't have that as a basis. So it would be like having to learn it all as an adult. That's a lot harder to do than having a foundation when you're younger. So there has to be something. To some extent, it's going to be science, but it has to be the understanding of that science is not outside of you. That science, you're part of that science. You're a living, active, functioning part of the process that science is describing. And I don't think we have that much of a connection built yet. Probably will be in the Aquarian age. But at the moment, these groups are kind of in flux if they don't have some basic foundation, because you're also, you're talking about good, you're talking about evil, you're talking about which direction you're going, so on and so forth. And either if there isn't some, and when I'm talking about the drug generations, I look at some of the generations where let's go to where the stuff is grown, where it's created, and you've got to have users at that point. And then you've got children that are coming from that system, which does not necessarily have a religious background either. And you get couple generations out, and morals and ethics and all of that just they're not there. You know, or the chemistry has burned out the connections. So I think when I was a little bit younger, you always felt you could appeal, if you got into a situation like that, that you could appeal to somebody's better nature. Okay, when you get with some of these people, there isn't one to appeal to. You know, and that's part of the body's been destroyed, probably, in its functionality, and it doesn't have that background. So yeah, for the children now, they need some foundation of the direction of good and its value. So, and basically should have a basic idea of the direction of where the human body is meant to go and to grow. And that'll come, but you're probably going to lose a few generations in between in the transition. So anyway, I'm going back to the white magic. I'm still on 33, the soul, the mediator, the middle principle, because we're going to be dealing with consciousness here at the same time. There are two angles or points of view from which the nature of the soul must be grasped. One is the aspect of the soul in relationship to the fourth kingdom in nature, the human kingdom. And the other is that of the subhuman kingdoms in nature, which it must be remembered are reflections of the three higher kingdoms. It should be borne in mind that the soul of matter, the anima mundi, is the sentient factor in substance itself. So if I don't know how many of you remember that we talked once about there being three systems. There's the first system, we're in the second, and there will be a third. So you've got the triplicity. He has race structure, and the first system dealt with intelligent activity. So when he's talking about the sentient factor in substance itself, he's indicating that was the first system. It created the sentiency in substance. That was its product. So that we, and so he describes that it is the responsiveness of matter throughout the universe, and that innate faculty in all forms, from the atom of the physicist to the solar system of the astronomer, which produces the undeniable intelligent activity which all demonstrate. So when we come to a point where we want the substance to interact, there's a quality in it that allows it to interact, to respond, to be where it's supposed to be. And now I'm looking at that conceptually from the viewpoint of, so you've got this little golden thing that creates all of this, blah, 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 blah. It knows where it's supposed to create a liver and a soul. In other words, it's got the intelligent activity to follow in the pattern where it's supposed to fall. So it produces the undeniable intelligent activity which all demonstrate. It can be called attractive energy, coherency, sentiency, aliveness, awareness, or consciousness. But perhaps the most illuminating term is that the soul is the quality which every form manifests. And don't you, as you meet people, recognize that some of them have a certain quality about them, and there's others that are really thin when it comes to quality? You know, in other words, the developmental phases, they aren't where some other unit is, or some other person. You know, sometimes you can't compare them even. They're so far apart. So what he's indicating here is that the quality is probably the most illuminating term that describes the soul. And that's why when people ask me as an astrologer about twins, and well, aren't they going to be identical? And I said, well, this is a description, the astrology chart's a description of the personality that's going to be used in this incarnation. It doesn't describe the soul. So you can have an old soul and a young soul in a set of twins. And they're going to use that personality differently because of the quality and the content of their history. It is that subtle thing which distinguishes one element from another, one mineral from another. It is the intangible, essential nature of the form, which in the vegetable kingdom determines whether it's a rose or a cauliflower, an elm or a watercress shall come into being. It is a type of energy which distinguishes the varying species of the animal kingdom and makes one man different from another in his appearance, his nature, and his character. The scientist has tabulated, investigated, and analyzed the forms. Yeah, we've got books and volumes on the forms and identifying them, and plant kingdom and mineral kingdom, et cetera, et cetera. Names have been selected and given to the elements and the minerals, the forms of vegetable life, the varying species of animals, the structure of the forms, and the history of their evolutionary process has been studied, and deductions and conclusions have been reached. But the solution of the problem of life itself still eludes the wisest, and until the understanding of the web of life, which we just covered over here, or of the body of vitality which underlies every form and links every part of every form with every other part is recognized and known to be a fact in nature, the problem will remain unsolved. The definition of the soul may be regarded as somewhat more feasible than that of spirit, owing to the fact that there are many people who have experienced at some time or another an illumination, an unfoldment, an uplifting, a beatitude which has convinced them that there's a state of consciousness so far removed from that normally experienced as to bring them into a new state of being and a new level of awareness. Sometimes it's just an epiphany, or like with cosmic consciousness, a few of those have written their stories in the back of there, and it brings them into that new state of being. It is something felt and experienced and involves the psychic expansion which the mystic has registered down the ages, and which St. Paul referred to when he spoke of being caught up to the third heaven. Well, was that the third initiation? Could have been. And of hearing things there which it's not lawful for man to utter. When hearing and sight on those levels are both producing registered experience, we have the occultist plus the mystic. Now, I don't know if any of you guys have looked at the Inventing Time and Space, the Twin Dimensions. But in the process of that book, it really explains how our senses and the development of our senses has allowed us, and that's why he says inventing time and space, have allowed us to create those extensions which can give us the capacity to literally extend ourselves out into the cosmos. You know, and some of the unique ways we've done it to even, I think Schoenberg and his atonal music, which I know little about music, allowed us to create a new time, a new measurement of time. And when you get into cosmic fire, then there's an elucidation, because on every one of these levels on these charts, you have you have your 5 senses, but you have 5 levels of development of those senses. The ones we use for the most part, of course, is our vocal cords. Hearing, sight, touch, taste, and we're usually functioning on the most basic of those levels, like we are right now. You know, we're looking at this, we can hear this, so on and so forth, but we probably aren't functioning on sub-level 3. We're probably on sub-level 5 of 5 senses. As you develop, and as those initiatory processes develop, and as you move up, then you will be developing the capabilities in your own 5 senses of those upper levels and qualities. And we develop them randomly also. You know, we have a lot of lifetimes. So, I mean, sometimes you might get a ditz who's really got some either great audible sense or something else, you know, that appears to be far advanced when the rest of them's not, but they might be working on that level of development in that given lifetime. And it may not appear to coordinate with anything else that's going on, but it's specifically something that because they don't all just sing and they're there, you know, this is a gradual, we can talk to Donnie about things being gradual. You know, that was the little speed demon when he started this thing. He now understands that things go a little slower.
Oh, you chilled me out quite a bit, Carla. You shut me right up.
But you've also, I think, seen that there is a gradual change.
Yeah. It's different when you just, all you have to do is pay attention and you can see it. It's just being aware of it now. You know?
Yeah.
And time just kind of goes, and then you can see it in increments, maybe not every day, but like, oh yeah, I remember I used to be kind of crazy and now I don't act like that. I don't have those feelings or emotions or act like anything like I used to anymore. Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, it's a protection that it's slow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's
just a matter of paying attention to it, I think.
right when you become aware of it, but
Yeah.
but also, you know, people want to go very quickly. I mean, I've been around for a long time in this spiritual world. I mean, they think they've arrived, et cetera, and you know, some of the people have put it very well. Other people who are really farther advanced, they said, you know, hey, if they were where they said they were, they would have blown up and exploded, because the level they think they're at would be like putting your finger in a light socket, or to you know, blow up the atom here and you know, it's gradual for protection. He mentions this many times, is you know, you can't move that fast. The human psyche can't move that fast. It generally, I mean, look at the average human. How far do they get from point A to point B in a given lifetime? You know, generally not that far. They keep working on whatever the issue is that the chart, you know, defines for them, et cetera, but you can't crush them. You know, you just can't throw a horrendous amount of stuff at them and expect them to do well with it. So it's generally a little of this and a little of that. And of course, you guys have probably had more than most in terms of being in the military and going through a lot of stuff that most people don't have to deal with.
I think we probably crammed quite a bit in just in the first year of our military. And then after that, everything was icing on that cake.
Yeah. Especially if you wanted to blow up things.
It's a guy thing.
No, no, it's not every guy thing, but
It's
I
just
mean,
the guy thing.
I can see your chart, so I mean, I know some people are more extreme than others. You just want to be legal about it. That's all. You just want to have the legal jurisdiction to be able to do it.
You know, something I try to tell people is because I feel different too, Donnie, and I'm glad Carla brought that up because it's not just you. And people always say, "Oh, you know, blah 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 about just these violent things," and I'm like, "Look, I know it's still there, but it's very suppressed now. There's no reason to let that cat out of the bag. It's not like it's gone for me. It's I just have no reason to dig into that. You know, it's I'd rather just pray or buy my way out of it or talk my way out of something and get involved in that's their fear, that's their injustice, that's their perception, that's their when I see somebody that's angry. If I'm angry, then I know automatically it's me. It's not them, it's me. It's the way I'm seeing things. Because I promise you, even with driving now in the car when people act crazy, I'm like, man, I was like, I used to carry that anger with me for like maybe an hour or two. I'm like, that person's already forgot about me. They're not even thinking about me, or they didn't even know I was there. You know, so the only person that's upset about what happened right then and there is me, and I'm taking it out on everyone else around me that doesn't deserve it. So I've learned to cool down a lot quicker. I've found my own way, but I'm always looking for those signs. I'm always looking for those symbols. And then after that, it's just a matter of interpretation, my own interpretation. And if I
Mhm.
need help, that's when I reach out to you or I go grab a book.
Yeah. It's making that transition. Yeah, and it is a transition.
Yeah, trying.
So moving on up. And, but I mean, underneath everything, that whole process of that monad and that divine spark, which I kind of call chip off the old block, that each one of us has within us, because that comes all the way down that chart. If you talked about involution, then we are now working our way back up. But inside of every atom is a portion of that monadic essence. So that is powerful. We know that. You split the atom, you know, you have Japan as proof of dropping that atomic bomb, because it's in there. It's in there in every one of us. It is what pulls us up, because it wants to get back home to the top too. So, but it's got all of these layers of density that we talk about when we talk about being dense, okay, that it has to work off to get back up. But that's the pull. And that's why in certain places, they'll just say that evolution is guaranteed. Because you can only hold it down so long. You could only make a captive of a population or the humanity on this planet or whatever for so long. And then the build, the energy, the drive would concentrate to a certain point where it's going to break out. Okay. It cannot be turned around and said, okay, now you're all going back down here. Okay. It just, that's not going to happen. So every once in a while, you will see somewhere in this material that the ultimate success of making it up there is guaranteed, but it's guaranteed because in the core there is that, we call it first ray energy, which is closest to reflecting the monad. And that's where it's talking about here, this section A, the soul is the form building aspect. It's an attractive factor in every form in the universe, in the planet, in kingdoms of nature, in man, who sums up in himself all the aspects, which bring forth into being, which enables it to develop and grow so that to house more adequately the indwelling life, which drives all God's creatures forward along the path of evolution. So the pathway is guaranteed ultimately, but, and then he's talking about through one kingdom after another towards the eventual goal and glorious consummation, which is when you arrive to be in full consciousness up to the top. So the guarantee is there of ultimate success, but there can be a lot of bumps, grinds, and delays along the way. And the further up you get, the less delay there is. Let's put it that way. He indicates at this point in time, the most difficult journey is through the astral plane, through level number 6, because humanity is so active in it, and it has no separations. All 7 levels are just one big streaming pool. They where when you get to the mental plane, you got the lower mental, which is 4 through 7. Then you've got the soul on level number 3. You've got the physical permanent atom on level number 1. So that's broken up. But the astral plane it's like a mosh pit. Okay. I don't know if you guys.
Yeah, get tossed to and fro.
Yeah, I mean, I saw that on CSI, so those things weren't happening when I was younger. In fact, the other day, I'm going off point here. The other day, they let me see, what was oh yeah, down here when I'm in Baja, there's a propane stove, but you don't have the pilot light going, and it's not an electric starter. You start it with a little match. And the Mexican matches are about this long for starters. And the wood is about 1/5 the dimension of the wood matchstick that you get in the States. And so anyway, and I light these and turn them on and off quite often. So sometimes if I lit it really fast and it hasn't burned much of the match, I'll just set it aside, because if I'm going to then start another burner and one of them's already going, I'll just light this little match again and go forward. And I looked at that little pile and I thought, my grandkids would think I was probably really crazy. They see this little pile of matchsticks and so on and so forth. And, and then I got to thinking, and I thought, when I was young and I was visiting my grandma, and my grandma lived right in town, 2 blocks away from where we were, and we had houses and we had all the basic stuff that you have now, and sewers and electricity and all of that stuff, and streets and curbs and gutters and, all of it. So, but it was Minnesota. So, I mean, but when I went to visit my grandma, which was only 2 blocks away, and she's got a house and she's got a garden and she's got electricity and she's got all that. But we go next door to the lady who's living there. And for her water, she's got a well pump in her house. Pumps the water into the sink, and that's how she gets her water. And we got sewers in that area, but and then she's got her wood burning stove right next to that with her so she cooks on and so on and so forth, and talks about how when must have been her son was born and was born premature, they put him in a shoebox and stuck him kind of near the wood burning stove, slide a little bit under to keep him warm. And I thought, what a stretch between what I remember with my grandma and what my kids would remember my grandkids with me in terms of the change and the quality of the lifestyle. You know, that, and I'm still living and they're living. So the consciousness is carried across the board, if you will, of how fast we've kind of moved. But yeah, no, she was, and that was just normal. And I mean, you didn't see any source of a well. So, I mean, I don't know where it was, down underneath the house somewhere. That the house had been built around it. So anyway, that was off point here with all of this.
Well, I'm just gonna throw something in there for Frank and Bull and Tom. We've been in valleys and mountains in the Afghanistan where they'd never even seen a helicopter, and not even in pictures, probably some of them. And we look like aliens coming in, but to see the simplicity of their life, and to simplicity almost to the like point of like cave people simplicity. Their water's coming out of the side of the mountain into a bucket or something, you know, that they handcrafted a lot of, like, very wild to see that part of life. And we, you know, that was really pretty intense.
And another one, just Jacques Cousteau, and this would have been in South America. There's a big lake. Is there a Lake Titicaca in South America somewhere?
Mhm.
Okay, so they're going down to dive for searching for something that's in that lake. And so they come in with all their dive equipment, whatever their vehicle is, and they probably came in by air to get to the location. They're going in, they're diving, they get dressed like, you know, all their dive equipment, which still was like medium quality. It's not the diving bell, but it's also not probably the super stuff they have today. And they go in and they dive in this lake and looking for whatever they're looking for. And they come out and, you know, and then probably change back into their clothes and off on a helicopter. And so those natives who are there, you know, they're going to have stories they're telling for generations about what came and left, kind of thing. And they have no idea, no context to put these guys in. Same kind of stuff. It's but that's what this planet's all about. It's the continual evolution. And not everybody's at the same level. Not everybody's meant to be at the same level. I mean, my God, can you imagine if everybody was at the same level and had the same interest and the same drive to do the same thing? I mean, the cutthroat.
Well, not just cutthroat, but it would be boring. I mean, it would be really boring.
Yeah, it would be. But for the people who were all focused in that same channel, fighting to get to the same place at the same time for the same asset, if you will, or something, is just not.
Well, we have that now. It's called victimhood. If I could be the bigger victim than you, then I win. It's a narcissistic community.
At the moment.
Interesting perspective, sir.
Well, we all see it. I mean,
yeah.
Or the race thing.
Yep. So, and one of the themes that I'll probably do a little article or something on is inclusiveness, because this planet is certainly inclusive because it's included every one of us. You know, and so maybe we should think about being inclusive in return. You know, it's like I said, it's one of the first things that when I do an astrology class or something, I say, look, no bad signs. And you got to understand all these people out there, life is sustaining every one of them. And that's important to understand is, you know, so. So number B is the soul is the force of evolution itself. And this was in the mind of St. Paul when he spoke Christ in you and the hope of glory. So we've got this continual path of this indwelling life that just keeps moving in and out of incarnation, in and out of, I mean, look, it goes through the mineral kingdom, the vegetable kingdom, the animal kingdom, the human kingdom, and then into the spiritual kingdom. And that's when you're connecting with that triad that's in the middle of that chart. And that's the upper larger triangle, but not the equilateral one that's above that. It's so number 3, this soul manifests differently in the various kingdoms of nature, but its function is ever the same. Whether we're dealing with an atom of substance and its power to preserve its identity and form and carry forward its activity along its own lines, or whether we deal with a form in one of the 3 kingdoms of nature held coherently together, demonstrating characteristics, pursuing its own instinctual life, and working as a whole towards something higher and better. Therefore, the soul is that which gives distinctive characteristics and differing form manifestations. The soul plays upon matter, forcing it to assume certain shapes, to respond to certain vibrations, and to build those specific phenomenal forms which we recognize in the world of the physical plane as mineral, vegetable, animal, and human. And for the initiate, certain other forms as well. And now he's talking about when you get up into that triad that I was just talking about, you have energy, but it is formless energy. It doesn't create the forms that the lower ones do, but it's still building a body. It's building the Buddhic body. It's building the Atmic body, which are yours. Okay, but they're on the more fine and refined level from our viewpoint, because we're still dealing with a lot of gross matter. The qualities, the vibrations, the colors, the characteristics in all the kingdoms of nature are soul qualities, as are the latent powers in any form seeking expression and demonstrating potentiality. In their sum total at the close of this evolutionary period, they will reveal what is the nature of the divine life and of the world soul, that oversoul which is revealing the character of God. So we're now talking about in totality, the growth and development on evolution of everything. And we're dealing with the planet. So we'll stick with the evolution of this planet and seeing and experiencing that at the moment. Therefore, the soul, and through these qualities and characteristics, manifests as conscious response to matter. For the qualities are brought into being through the interplay of the pairs of opposites, spirit and matter, and their effect on each other. And this is the basis of consciousness. So that one is a key, because it's the pairing of the spirit and the matter, which is creating the consciousness. And we actually happen to be the vehicles who are doing that. This body, and a lot of what I want to work with this material is to help people understand what they've got for a body and what it can do and what its parts are. We haven't had any of that development in our educational system yet, probably because there was a lack of awareness of it. But, and that's where the book Physics of Consciousness comes in, because he describes exactly that. It's got a lot of science in it to explain why, because this material works with the quantum. I mean, we can't, for example, say, yes, it exists, but we're going to exclude it in this evolutionary path. Nothing's going to get excluded in this evolutionary path by the time you get to the end, because our awareness of what is there above us as individuals, some on the forefront and later the group, discover more of the capacities and the qualities and the potentialities that are there. That's why for people to say, well, humans just aren't going to be able to keep up, so we're going to have to plug them in with all of this electronic equipment and chips and all of that because they'll never make it otherwise, is totally untrue. We just need to get focused on the real game here, so that because all those chips and stuff are going to do is pretty much make you just figure out the lower levels a little faster, maybe, but it doesn't have the qualities in it that spiritual triad has, that when you connect to it is eventually going to become part of you. Okay. Donnie, you can speak to that a little bit. I think you've experienced some different transitions. Maybe you just mentioned it a little earlier, but yeah, it's a slow process of change, but it incorporates that, and that becomes part of your conscious awareness and consequently your functionality.
I'm sticking with my theme of awareness, just of the process, just learning this material, reading this material, studying this material, and then it kind of becomes part of your normal thought processes, and now you become aware of something completely new. It's really, it's beautiful, The material is really powerful. It just changes. It rearranges the thought processes and start building new stuff, a whole new thing, I guess.
Yeah.
Because every day we get new secrets, I guess you could say, just from going over this stuff. And after every conversation, we'll get the brunt of this conversation today will probably come tomorrow or the next day, where something that we talked about builds a new connection or synthesizes with something else. Well, it's happening in real time, partially, but it will continue after this too.
Well, you know how they say it's like the ignorance of modern man is on purpose. It's by design. I mean, that's the whole purpose of people that go to school. We're all taught 1 + 1 is 2 at the same time. It's all by design, And now that we've taken a step back and the initiative is on us to go out there and make that change, starting with ourselves, and then kind of start putting it in our children and our friends or colleagues or people we run into daily. That's how I see it. It's my responsibility now to do my part, now that I know that it's all been by design.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to see, therefore the soul might be defined as that significant aspect in every form made through this union of spirit and matter, which feels, registers awareness, attracts and repels, responds or denies response, and keeps all forms in a constant condition of vibratory activity. The soul is the perceiving entity produced through the union of Father, Spirit, and Mother Matter. It is that which in the vegetable world, for instance, produces, responds to the sun's rays and the unfolding of the bud. It is that in the animal kingdom which enables it to love its master, hunt its prey, and follow its instinctual life. And now we're attributing all this to the soul. It is that in man which makes him aware of his environment and his group, which enables him to live his life in the three worlds of his normal evolution as the onlooker, the perceiver, and the actor. This it is which enables him eventually to discover that this soul in him is dual, and that part of him responds to the animal soul, and part of him recognizes his divine soul. The majority, however, at this time will be found to be functioning fully as neither purely animal nor purely divine, but can be regarded as human souls. The soul of the universe is, for the sake of clarity, capable of differentiation, or rather, owing to the limitations of the form through which that soul has to function, is capable of recognition at differing rates of vibration and stages of development. The soul nature in the universe therefore manifests in certain great states of awareness, with many intermediate conditions, of which the major can be enumerated as follows. So this is, we're now getting to larger groups, I guess, the soul of the universe. Consciousness, or that state of awareness in matter itself, due to the fact that Mother Matter has been screwed by Father Spirit. I can never pronounce that name, so we'll just leave it at that. And thus life and matter have been brought together. This type of consciousness concerns the atom, the molecule, and the cell, which all forms are constructed. So this is consciousness, and it's really important to start catching what this is. Thus, the form of the solar system, of a planet, and all of that is found upon or within a planet is produced by consciousness. It is that union of spirit and matter, and as long as that is going and occurring, then you're constantly creating consciousness. There's talk, and I've never pursued it a lot because I really didn't care about all the chains and all of that. Then that's more Blavatsky stuff. But the moon chain, there was life on the moon, and then it was kicked off for whatever reason, or they were put on hiatus for a while too. I'm not sure which. Okay, they're third ray monads. Most of what we've got here. So they were the slow guys in the last system. Okay, I guess is what you'd say. They were the last ones in the class that were still in first grade. Something to that effect, if you will. And that's their words, not mine. So they're now incarnated in this system and figure they should be the leaders because they've got to be ahead of everybody else because they were the end all and the other one, whatever. So, but the comment was the reason there's no life on the moon is because there's no men on the moon anymore. There's no, in other words, there's no life form similar to us or what they were, because they were the ones creating the consciousness, which allows for the life to occur. So, so the significance for us on this planet is if you take away the consciousness producing vehicles, you're not going to have the life on that planet or that orbiting body, because you need something that creates that consciousness, because that is engaging spirit and matter. That is engaging that very energy from the very top, even though now it's quite contained as it comes down and gets veiled with each level. But you need that. And if you don't have it, you're not going to have life as we see it on that, in this case, the moon, for example. But that there had been life there at one point, but when they got removed from there, the life went with it. Intelligent, sentient consciousness that evidences in the mineral and the vegetable kingdoms. It is that which is responsible for the quality, the shape, and the coloring of the vegetables and mineral forms and for their specific natures. In animal consciousness, the awareness of the soul response of all forms in the animal kingdom, producing their distinctions, species, and nature. And when you get to the mineral kingdom, and you get to that chart of elements, those elements, they all know where they want to go. They all pair up. I mean, that's chemistry is about that. It's figuring that out. Who's going where? So there's a basic rudimentary intelligence at that level. Now, human consciousness or self-consciousness, towards which the development of the life, form, and awareness in the three other kingdoms is gradually tended. This term concerns the individual consciousness of man, and in the early stages is more animal than divine, owing to the dominance of the animal body with its instincts and tendencies. And HPB defines man accurately as an animal plus a god. Later, it is more strictly human, neither purely animal nor entirely divine, but fluctuating between the two stages, thus making the human kingdom the great battleground between the pairs of opposites, between the urge or the pull of spirit and the lure of matter or mother nature, and between that called the lower self and the spiritual man. And that is probably a battle we are dealing with right now. In terms of, there's a lot of talk on this planet these days that we are in a spiritual war, and that it's good and evil. Well, what that would be basically describing is, which direction are you going here? Are you sticking with the animal nature and going back towards that, or are you going to proceed forward up into making the spiritual connections on the mental plane that are, for the most part, accessible to people if they pursue it now? And probably could have been more clearly defined in the last 2,000 years, the pathway, but it wasn't. So now we're here, and we have choices. But that, I think, is the pairs of opposites, and you're either going back to the instincts and the tendencies of the animal nature, or you're going to move forward and enhance our awareness with some of what's considered spiritual nature. Now, group consciousness, which is the consciousness of the great sum totals, is arrived at by man through the development, first of all, of his individual consciousness, the sum total of the lives of his animal, emotional, and mental natures, plus the spark of divinity dwelling within the form which they make. Then comes group awareness, awareness of his group as specified for him in that group of disciples working under some one master who represents to him the hierarchy. The hierarchy might be defined as the sum total of those sons of men who are no longer centered in the individualized self-consciousness, but who have entered into the wider realization, that of the planetary group life. Those would be the ones who would be consciously functioning up on levels 2, 3, 4, and 5, upper 5. And that of the planetary group life. And there are stages in this realization mounting all the way from that tiny group recognition of the probationary disciples up to the complete group awareness of the life in whom all forms have their being, their consciousness of the planetary logos, that spirit before the throne, who manifests through the form of a planet as man manifests through his form in the human kingdom. So, so the soul, therefore, must be regarded as the unified sentiency and the relative awareness of that which lies back of the form of a planet and of a solar system. These latter are the sum total of all forms, organic or inorganic, as the materialist differentiates them. The soul, through constituting one great total, is however limited in its expression by the nature and the quality of the form in which it is found. And there are consequently forms which are highly responsive to and expressive of the soul, and others which, owing to their density and the quality of the atoms of which they are composed, are incapable of recognizing the higher aspects of the soul or of expressing more than its lower vibration, tone, or color. The infinitely small is recognized, the infinitely vast is assumed, but it remains as yet a concept until such time as the consciousness of man is inclusive as well as exclusive. This concept will be understood when the second aspect is contacted and men understand the nature of the soul. It must also be remembered that just as the basic triplicity of manifestation works out symbolically in man as his quota of energy, his physical energy, in other words, the basic triplicity of manifestation works out symbolically as his quota of energy, his nervous system, the body mass, so the soul can be known as a triplicity, the higher correspondence of the lower. There is, first of all, what might be called the spiritual will, that quota of the universal will which any one soul can express and which is adequate for the purpose of enabling the spiritual man to cooperate in the plan and the purpose of the great life in which he has his being. There's also the second soul quality, which is spiritual love, the quality of group consciousness, of inclusiveness, of mediatorship, of attraction, or of unification. But when we deal with inclusiveness here, this I would expect is a natural inclusiveness. It's not a forced one, but it's just a natural understanding. And as you move further up that chart, your awareness, and as you build those subtler bodies, they have less density to them. Those films that are covering them are less. And it's just automatic that they are more aware of, on those levels, of the totality of the group, of the all, if you will. The further down you, I mean, a carrot isn't necessarily aware even of other carrots, much less us. So, and the opposite happens when you start building up on those spiritual triadal levels, because there's very little blockage from you being aware across the board on that level, all the energy that's there. So, and your innateness is not to reject or to separate on those levels, where when you get down to rocks and carrots and, you know, and then move into the animal kingdom and our lower kingdoms, we're still separate. We're still, our force fields are not, you know, and to some extent we're meant to be that way at that stage. And I say that from, it's just like you don't cross, look at the variations of animals. And they don't cross species and multiply. You know, they've got their distinctive categories, and you know, you don't see dogs and cats trying to intermix and have what would be a combination of the two of them. You know, it's not going to happen. But later, there's just no separation. The higher up you get, Annie Besant talks about that first film is so very thin and translucent that you're not blocked out from experiencing anything else on that plane. So then the soul has the spiritual love, the group consciousness, inclusiveness, mediatorship. This is the paramount soul characteristic, for only the soul has it as the dynamic factor. And the reason, I mean, well, I shouldn't say the reason, but we have to understand we're in the second solar system. We are creating consciousness. That's the whole goal of this system, is to the union of spirit and matter. And the product of it is the consciousness. And the product of that is the soul of things, because ultimately it's collective. By the time you get to the top, you got it all from everybody on a level of awareness that is transparent. We're not there yet, but the point is that's where it's going. You know, they want, I think each individual, I'm probably not going to quite say this right, but he talked about the ultimate goal is for each individual to be a fully conscious unit in the cellular structure of this planet, or however you want to put it, where we're fully conscious and translucent. And when you get into the initiations, human and solar, he talks about, I think it's initiation 6 or something, which he says doesn't have, but he has information and documentation and comments for people who've associated or had those experiences, I think is what he indicates. And that the closest words they had was a realized state of being, a past tense, realized state of being comes with that. So, and being is of course the ultimate, it's up on the top. It's that monadic little chip of divine spark or whatever, where you fully consciously realized state of being is what I'm assuming that is talking about. We're a long way from that, but that is meant to be supposedly the goal for evolution and human to spiritual to that. And like I said, at that point, when you follow the book Raising Initiations, then they're asking you, where are you going? Where are you going next? Because, you know, now you have 5 levels. If that was number 6, you got 7, 8, 9, 10, 9. But at number 6, they're already saying, all right, which pathway are you going to work your way out of here with? And the preparations for that start. But I think they're very long preparations. But then you're out into the cosmos somewhere. And he does indicate that they are the pathways that have been options to date are the same pathways that all that energy came in on. Not that you're going back out on the same pathway. You could choose another one, but that this is not a, what is he talks about this one with the planet and the pilgrim, and you don't get to rest here, you don't get to park here, and you don't get to stay here. This is a process by which you're doing your evolutionary trip here, and then you're off somewhere else where you might get permanently parked there. But here, there's no real resting place. This is, well, I won't say it's a factory, but in a way it's kind of like one. It's a little bit like indentured servitude. I tell you well, and in a way it is, because what is the soul decides that it needs to have some more experience, so it incarnates. So the physical form is created, and out of your past and the collectivity of who you are, and you have your experiences, and then you're drawn back again and up, and hopefully it's an upgrade that adds to the soul, so on and so on and so forth. But the soul has basically, he makes it very clear, until you're ready to reach the levels where the soul is, it has no interest in you. You're just down there doing your thing, and you're gonna, whatever the product this lifetime results in is going into that collective till you get to a point. And that soul is really put there because you got those empty links, you know. Man has gotten to the point where that dotted line stops, but he hasn't achieved the connection to the soul yet, other than people who do the hard work of doing it early, where down the line, eventually later, that'll be a natural evolution that will come in a certain degree of timing in the life of a human being here. So, but at this point in time, you got to do the work to build that bridge, as they call it, which he deals with the process in that, in the initiation or in the raisin initiations.
Well, that's kind of like the Native Americans that say the life of a human is a circle from childhood to childhood, and so is everything else. You know, the power moves through it.
Yeah, except I'm wondering if most of those systems involve the complexity of this initiatory path of conscious awareness. And one of the reasons I question that is we collectively improve the consciousness as time goes on. And then this goes back into a pool. When you get into esoteric healing and you get into, I think it's repatriation is the section. In other words, when you die, all of the parts separate, but they all go back into a reservoir to be utilized by. And we certainly know, or at least I do, because of I'm so much older, that where I came in and went to first grade, and where my kids came in and went to first grade, or what I was learning and capable of learning at sophomore, and what they're learning, and they're just natural awareness. I mean, they're miles apart already. So, I mean, the human capacity has upgraded quite a bit after the war, actually. I think after World War II, once you drop the bomb, things changed, because you split.
It's más y menos, right? So yes, we've improved, but we've also declined, you know. And
well, I think we're doing a battle right now of the improved who want to continue to improve. There's a struggle to say, oh no, you know, we're going to short circuit your route because we want to stay down here. We want to continue to live this way, and back and forth in that regard. But ultimately the good guy wins out, but that can be a long haul sometimes too. But but there's something in esoteric healing that I want to, before I get into all of the aspects of this soul on page 41. So I'm going to jump for a minute. In esoteric healing, which is basically what it pretty much sounds like, he has some laws, and the basic laws that deal with a lot of life here. And his first law is all disease is a result of inhibited soul life. And that is true of all forms in all kingdoms. The art of the healer consists in releasing the soul so that its life can flow through the aggregate of organisms which constitute any particular form. It's interesting to note that the attempt of the scientist to release the energy of the atom is of the same general nature as the work of the esotericist when he endeavors to release the energy of the soul. And that's part of what you're doing with this kind of study, for example. In this release, the nature of the true art of healing is hidden. Herein lies an occult hint. In the fourth place, we will consider the physical body, its diseases and ills, but only after we have studied that part of man which lies behind and surrounding the dense physical body. In that way, we shall work from the world of inner causes to the world of outer happenings. We shall see that all that concerns the health of man originates from the sum total of forces, feelings, desires, and occasional mental processes, which characterizes the three subtler bodies, determines the life and experience of the physical body. The effect upon the physical body of the condition of humanity as a whole. A human being is an integral part of humanity, an organism in a greater organism. Conditions existing in the whole will be reflected in the unit itself. And many of the ills from which man suffers today are the effect upon him of conditions existing in the fourth kingdom in nature as a whole. And for these, he is not held responsible. And number three, the effect of his physical body of the planetary life, which is the expression of the life of the planetary logos, who is an evolving entity, and the implications of this are largely beyond our ken, but the effects are discernible. So, and now I'm jumping to another section here. 2 words I give you which embody the requirements of all true healers and towards which you must work. And you ultimately are your own healer. So it's appropriate to consider these words as your own. They are magnetism and radiation. A healer must be magnetic above everything else and attract to him the power of his own soul. This involves an alignment through individual meditation and so on and so forth. So the real health, and when he talks about, and that was just the introduction. The 3 areas, I wonder if it's law number. The biggest problems, if you're going to have a health problem, are going to be related to the good, the beautiful, and the true. And I don't know where. Because there's 3 things, I'm not going to get this totally right. That relates to the 3 aspects, the lower 3, the good, the beautiful, and the true. The true will be the mental, the good will probably, the beautiful will be the middle one, and the good one will be the physical. And that, so the soul is working on a concept from each of the 3. And so if you're off track, is basically what he's saying in short. If you move off track too far from the intent of this lifetime, as far as the soul is concerned, it will cause an irritation somewhere in the physical body that makes you sick to a point where you will stop going down the route you're going and have to pull back for a while and reroute to where you're supposed to go. That's a short version of part of what he's got in esoteric healing. And I have seen that. I've had astrology students who have, I mean, it's been very apparent. They're stuck in a situation that they got themselves into, and they personally just can't extract themselves. Okay. For whatever reason, guilt, whatever. So they get so sick that they either have to be removed from that environment or just do a 180 on everything, whatever it takes to get them out of the corner they put themselves in. And then they can get well again. As long as they're then on track for their own personal inner directives as to what this lifetime was meant to be for them. And so that also happens. And it's just like every once in a while he'll use the term in here, unfold. Something will unfold. They use the same term when they work with genetics, and they will look at somebody and do the analysis, and it's related to a certain illness or condition or hereditary, whatever. And they can't understand why some little aspect of this has been folded over on top of another DNA. So, or portion of it, so that if it could unfold it, it would operate the way it's supposed to, and you wouldn't have this disease or this illness. And they're trying to go in and try to figure out how to make those things change physically from the lower level. But the real solution there is that soul level, that collection of vibrations and whatever it reflects and comes forward is inhibiting that at that point in time. So a lot of times they found when they go trying to tweak this, man, they mess up something else somewhere else, because they're trying to, in a sense, countermand what's in the soul of that individual, to try to just fix it without maybe fixing the real reason. And it doesn't work. And then it just spins off and causes something else to happen. So anyway, some more, how about some comments from somebody else again? I pushed through a lot of this material.
Tom, what you got, man? You got to get going soon, you said? You're on mute.
Yeah, I was muted. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'm going to have to drop here in about 4 minutes. So we got to get on the road. Well,
okay. Well, we'll listen to you. Yeah. Comments before you leave.
It's a lot to unpack.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think I want to dive into this group consciousness bit a little bit more. Is that like being connected all on the same, like?
Well, it's the consciousness of great sum totals.
Right.
And so you're to move up into those realms, and really identify with it, you're going to be moving into the realm of spiritual man, and you're going to be connecting with that middle triad that's
Okay.
levels 4 and 5 is what that represents, because then you can become aware innately, because the sentiency, if you will, that you are developing and the connections of that energy that you have can now become aware more on a planetary level.
Got it.
Okay, so but now I'm not talking about picking up the garbage, okay, as you know, doing something planetary, right? We're talking about the inner developmental phases and stages and the awareness of the planet, some of the planetary awareness, but on larger groups. I mean, first of all, you're running around in a group. Your body is a group. You've got all these little units, livers, pancreas, they're all little units themselves, and they're all functioning in a group conscious way in you. So a lot of people don't realize that. But I mean, my God, the amount of cellular structure you have there that's all operating in one unit is certainly a group conscious. We're group conscious in an awareness and functionality in many, many different ways that we're not even considering at this point in time. But and we've got a big push right now for group consciousness, but a lot of it is, again, enforced. It's not natural. It's, we're going to make you do this. We're going to make you do that. You know, we're going to legislate this or legislate that. It's not organically given and interacted with. It's because it's too early. It's too early to take all of humanity at all the different levels they are and force them to all think alike. It's not what was meant to be to start with.
Right.
So that's a little bit of this, but basically this is group consciousness. You automatically become part of as you move up in those levels of awareness and you move up that chart. And I mean, the goals for the planet are certainly different than some of the goals that humanity is trying to project onto all these life forms at the moment.
And Carla, did you say something about one day about 90% inclusiveness and 10% collective we're sharing?
It wasn't the word inclusive. When physics of consciousness, when he talks about the consciousness as a whole, that we share about 10% of consciousness, we all share together. That's why, you know, I can see you on my iPad. I can see what's outside. My neighbors can see the same thing I see. That's a collective consciousness we're all part of. But he indicates, I believe, we're almost 90% subjective. In other words, the majority of us is subjective. Yeah, if you're going to talk to me, you can explain some of that, you can expose some of that, but you're not going to physically see it. And so and if you look, I mean, if you look at that chart and you look at the distance of that chart, the majority of that is not going to be seen. The greater part of it, the matter aspect of it is very small down in the bottom two levels majority. And I mean, because you don't even see most of your thoughts. I mean, you're not out there seeing your thoughts. You might see some expression that's conveyed on your face or something. You can guess what they are, but so he did not imply it as inclusiveness Donnie, he just talked about it being subjective. In other words, the majority of us is not exposed to the general populace because we got a lot going on in our heads, and we can verbalize it, you know, or try to convey it. But just by nature, that was his percentage. So
I kind of look at that like the materialists saying we use, you know, the scientists saying we only use X% of our brains. You know, it kind of, it seems like they're just going the wrong way, or didn't go this way, obviously, but yeah, it's interesting.
Well, I mean, it's probably accurate because the majority, especially when they started saying that, I mean, who's running on this journey? Who's working on this journey? Because you're using the brain to its full capacity. I think by the time you've hit the third, which is the first, considered the first real initiation, is, and he's indicating that, first of all, the brain itself cannot even record the majority of what happens once you hit that spiritual triad. A little bit of it, yes, but as it further develops, you're going to continue developing, but your brain is not going to be able to recognize that that's occurring and convey that to you because it has no reception centers for it. It has nothing has been developed that is going to convey that conscious awareness to you via the brain when you're running around down here in this physical body. But he indicates it's still happening. And on other levels you are, and that's part of the job, is to be able to then develop the ability to discern, not a good word, but discern what that energy has for information, what is in there, and you develop the sensory apparatus to do that as you're exposed and incorporate more of that quality of energy within you. And then maybe to some extent you can convey some of that to a point of awareness on these lower levels. But one of the things that somewhere in this material was always complained about was they don't have much feedback yet from humanity up to the level of Shambhala. And I think I can understand some of that, because even the choices, look at the efforts. You've read, Bull has the books, all of them, so he knows. You've got the discipleships in the New Age, and you've got all that, and how they tried to do group work. And it never worked out, because at the level they're at this point, they don't understand humanity enough to understand its real limitations. When you get down there in level 6 and 7, that it's just not groupy, but it's not meant to be. You're just getting practice. You're getting some sentiency to become aware in consciousness down in level 7 and level 6. Then you're starting to work with emotion and creativity. Those are practice realms. You know, where, like I keep saying, it's like the Play-Doh. You can make it into this, and then you can smash it up and you can make it into something else, because it's not going to stick. It's not permanent. It's not concrete. It's unprincipled matter. It has no principles, so it's not going to hold. And the same way, you can dream 1,000 dreams. And to me, it's like bubbles, because you can put a pin in every one of them and pop, they're gone. Because that's all they were. It's not it's meant to bring the ideals from above, from the Buddhic plane down into the astral, so you get an idea of what's good and what's right. And that functions well. I mean, there's a lot of that. You see that. And it has its usefulness, but nothing there is permanent either. You don't get to anything that's permanent until you hit the mental plane, where you've got, it's concretized is what they describe it as. So when they're trying to do group work and the people involved are functioning in the astral plane and the physical plane, I mean, they're having emotional battles all the time, and they still do it today. I mean, that was what, almost not quite 100 years ago, they were trying the discipleship, the New Age books, maybe those groups. But it didn't work. You cannot create that degree of uniformity, and they just don't. If you haven't been down here and lived here and really ground through all that with humanity in mass, you're not going to understand that those great ideals and ideology, which is wonderful, but you can't shove it down these people's throats. They're just there to keep experimenting, experiencing and expressing. Those are the 3 E's that he talks about on these lower planes. But you're really in kindergarten or preschool or something in these lower levels. So once you can get working on the mental plane, and then having an awareness that this is the route, because your brain is waiting for that, because the programming, the counter programming that's there with it is waiting to help you go forward. Believe me, once you get on this track and you get up to a certain point, you will have help. And those initiations come with fully packaged with everything you're going to need to help you through that. But prior to that, yeah, I mean, you've got kumbaya moments with the second, but you finally are willing to give it up and say, you know, I'm not going to just swim in this pool, because it gets to be a cesspool at a certain point in terms of your perspective of it. And I mean, that's what pain is created for, is to drive you out of there and up onto the mental plane. So if you keep doing the same thing over and over again, and it's not a positive thing, you're not getting a positive result, eventually you're going to get to a point where you say, I've had enough. I'm done with this. I ain't going there anymore. You know, this is just not the route. This is a dead end, or however you want to put it. And then you're looking for something more solid, something more consistent, something that's going to bring you what you're really looking for. But the driver for you to go looking for that is the pain that you got when you were down lower than trying to accomplish something that, you know, that wasn't a doable thing anyway. Because
So
there's
the
nothing.
path is each individual's own, really.
Yep.
And you get there when you get there.
Yep.
Whichever way works best for you.
Yeah, because it's your
Yeah.
journey.
Right.
And each soul is an individual. He's got different race structure. All the experiences he's ever had in incarnation are his. So each individual it's a unique situation for everybody, their own. And yeah, and you end up, that's why nobody can really tell you anything. Sometimes people can help guide you out of, you know, I'm not saying that AA doesn't help people or rehabs don't help if it's serious, or somebody giving you some good advice at the right moment. But for the most part, it's got to sink into you. It has to be your choice.
Yeah, it's like you can't just go into it thinking that something like that is going to be the total solution for you. You've got to take that and grasp what you can get from it and kind of internalize it and apply it to your own path so that you can make it the best path for yourself, as opposed to staying stuck in these groups, per se, where they're all kind of forced into the same goal at the same time rate. But like you said, that everybody's at different stages, that's really not going to work. And it just kind of makes me question about just a lot of stuff we do in life that's so group oriented and towards common goals. But it makes me question, are they really common goals, or is it just kind of, are we being led in that direction?
I would think at this point, well, first of all, we got to remember, this is the changing of an age. The Piscean age is going out, the Aquarian is coming in. So this is like the energy that built the last 2,000 years is leaving. Okay. The other energy that's coming in is new now here, but it won't be the essence of organized energy for another 1,300 years. So this is a time of chaos for starters when it comes to right now. But even back 100 years ago, what they were trying to do was get everybody to be able to focus on a spiritual goal, create a spiritual union. And what happens is all of their little, they're still emotionally based, they're still astrally based. They've got their own issues to work out. And so you're asking them to forget about all their issues, which is part of what they're here for, is to work something out and be able to just really super concentrate on creating this. I don't know exactly what he wanted to create, but something that would have been an objective of some evolutionary development for the purpose of the planet. And that's not happening down there. I've seen it recently with people trying to do what they think are spiritual things. And you get these women together and they've all got access to grind, and they got them to grind against the other partners in this group. And they're going to stick the needle in here and there and be, backbite. That doesn't accomplish a spiritual goal. I think the best way that it's like this material, it's not for everybody, but for people that it is, they can take it and they'll work it within themselves. There's nobody else in the group should be telling them what to do, because that's not the way this works. I'm going to get to putting together a little article. Sovereignty is a big deal right now. I don't know if you've started to hear the terminology, but you're a sovereign being. They're pulling back to the Constitution itself as to the representation of the human being as part of in this case, the United States, under the Constitution. He has his sovereign rights. And yes, you are a sovereign being. The astrology chart gives you a clue if you didn't already know, because that's yours and yours alone. Your transitory, your path through this life is yours and yours alone, directed in that regard. But if you want to go all the way back up to being the chip off the little old block, if you will, that makes you a sovereign being. And you're on this planet for purposes of the planet, but not necessarily to be governed by other beings along the way. Now, that's all assuming that everybody is functioning with goodness and ethics and morals and things that will not hurt humanity. And we probably have to learn that in various stages along the way. But the bottom line is nobody can take that divine spark away from you. Nobody can take in this lifetime that chart away from you. And believe me, you can't be somebody else's either. That is you, and that is your path. And you are, in that regard, a sovereign being. That is you, and nobody else can take it away. And you have every right to be here and that whole thing, but it's your journey. And nobody else can tell you how to run that journey either, because those decisions have to be yours. And you have to stand behind them. And that's part of the journey and the experiences that this soul was after by saying it's time to incarnate. I need some more experience. So whatever it is, and nobody else can discern that except you and that little voice that's inside of you that you
Right.
talk all the time.
I have many conversations with that person.
Yeah, back and forth. And you know, and sure, you go off the reservation. there's no doubt about that. That's part of the journey, is trying to figure out what the reservation is, you know, or what the trail, what the pathway. And ultimately, this is the pathway you'll end up on. Whether you end up on it because you're working at this point in time, of which this is a little advanced, and you've chosen to be, you know, to move at a little faster pace than other people, or as we can see from that little dotted line that's come up, that pathway's already been built by human consciousness to that point. Okay, so eventually human consciousness, and the guy in cosmic consciousness will say that eventually the experience that he sees that's coming at the age of 35, he said eventually it'll come at 3 that you'll have this level of consciousness. Yeah, and way down the line somewhere it will be. But at this point in time, it's coming to what, a few in many million, I think was the way he described it. Because, and some of them don't even know how it happened to them, and others have pursued. So it's your choices. And, you know, if you go down the wrong path, you back up and try again. And I mean, it might take a lot of tries before you get exactly where you want. Depends how stubborn you are.
I am a
You know.
Taurus.
Yeah, right. And they used to call them hard-headed. That was another, you know, another terminology, and you know, but you learn. I remember, I think I was probably 8 or 9, and I was visiting relatives, and they had a farm and they had trees, and I like climbing trees. And but I'm not very aware of my surroundings, really. And so I climbed this tree, and I like to hang by my legs. You know, you bend your legs over and you kind of swing. Well, the branch broke and I fell down, fell out of the tree. So I climbed right back up on the tree, did it again, and the branch broke. Well, I have a feeling these branches were dead. Branches anyway. I just didn't realize it, you know. But by the same, and then I had kind of a headache, so I went to lay down for just a little bit, and I rarely go lay down. But the point was, you know, I was just going to do it again and again until finally it took 2 times of you know, falling a reasonable distance for somebody young before I had to say, well, that, you know, this one's not for me. Obviously they're missing something here. But yeah, stubborn, hard-headed, so on and so forth. Just keep going back at it until you get it, or you get it one way or another. You get the idea, or you finally accomplish whatever it is. But that's our journey.
It seems like you got to take it with a bit of caution though too, because, well, I mean, but like you said, if you make the wrong, if you find yourself going down the wrong path, you can always backtrack and like
Most of the time you
do
can,
yourself. But
or you learn something. But I mean, you know, it's nice if one can have discernment. I mean, that's part of what we're supposed to be learning also in
Mhm.
the process. And it doesn't mean everybody should run helter skelter and just throw the spaghetti up the wall to see when it sticks or whatever. And it's nice if you, but the point is, for the ones who are really hard-headed, they're just going to have to keep going at it because they're stubborn, which means they've been set in a way, and the way might be the wrong pathway for them, but they're determined they're going down it. Well, then it's not going to work, and it's not going to work, and it's not going to work. Yeah.
But you got to see what was down that road, down that alley.
Yeah, well, but yeah, that's you. But when you find out that you ain't liking what's down there, and you just keep
Yeah.
running into the same type of stuff, then
Yeah.
then it ain't too exciting.
No.
Yeah.
makes you think if those things will keep bubbling back up in your life too, to kind of test you. I think they do.
They probably do, but
Yeah.
it's a symbol. It's symbolic of something. And so the symbol has lots of different ways to experience and express itself. So generally, it's just like somebody, what did somebody, it was a chart, and she was referred to do the chart or something. And she said, yeah, well, but I have learned all those lessons. So what good would having my astrology chart read or looking at my transits? I've already accomplished all that. I went to some spiritual person or something, and I've worked through all that. So it wouldn't be any, you know, initially she realized maybe it could be beneficial, but the point was she had been told by somebody that she'd already worked through everything on the chart, so the chart didn't matter anymore, which is not the case. I think that chart governs and interacts in the physical world with the realms of matter, so on and so forth, as long as you're alive. And even Yogananda, when he was asked about working with transits or something, and I think the question had been, could he control it or something? He says, yes, but it was very hard. So the point is, even he felt the governance of this energy when he's in form. And I think you follow the laws that function on each of those planes, and that you don't bypass them. Okay. Now, if you're not in form, you're not going to deal with what is in form. But when you look at historical figures, and that chart goes on long after they're gone. Because I did that as a lesson one time in when I was taking classes, and it was a historical figure. And when you looked at his chart, because he was getting some new statues or something, I'm talking 100, 200 years later, okay, that were representative of honoring him. And it was there in the chart for the current timing. So, I mean,
Wow.
in another level, it's like when you take the, I think it was socialist, be it communist, I don't care which, Karl Marx. When you look at his chart and you look at where the transits, the planets were, and the relationships of them, and they were really out of sync. The three outer planets along with Saturn, I mean, they were it's not something that would work here on this planet at this point in time. Okay, maybe over eons of time, but every time those planets came back together in time over since he lived, and now you get a resurgence of that impetus. And so I kind of liken it to, it's a long written piece of music, and every so often that refrain shows up again. And when it does, human beings respond to it in various sections of the planet. Boom. And it shows up again. And then when that just those planets pull apart and aren't active, it goes away. And then it might be another 50 years and it shows up again. I mean, so there's ways of, I mean, this is a long stream of, for us, it's time. It may not be time for on other dimensions, but that stuff just keeps going back on. And when, yeah, so, I mean, it's amazing. Because there's nothing to stop that chart except the fact that somebody physically isn't informed from our viewpoint. Who knows? You know, there's so much we don't know. But it was just interesting because I looked at that and I thought, oh my. And
Well, yeah, I mean, Rumi's teachings, Ramana Maharshi, you can see it with a lot of the teachings, I guess they're here, right? Like they still are having an impact today.
sure. On somebody we know at least.
Yeah. Yeah.
Meaning
It's
you.
crazy. Yeah.
Oh, woe
Yeah,
be it
that's
if you lose your earbuds.
What's that?
Woe be it if you lose your earbuds.
I know. Well, you know what's interesting, I was thinking about it earlier, was Rumi had said at one point, a peculiar group of people had come here to create the invisible plane. Oh, like a magnificent, peculiar group of people, you know, came here. And I'm thinking that would, you know, that sounds like something DK would say, but that was in 1330 or something, you know. So
Yeah, and you know, the creation of this planet in and of itself is something that's way beyond our capacity to understand. But obviously it got created
yeah.
somehow by somebody, something, some energy.
And it's being sustained.
Yeah, I think it's better than an Energizer bunny, and principally better than the, you know, in the watches, when they had the watches now that never go down. What is that? That's a
Perpetual motion. Or
yeah,
no, the that you shake.
no, it's
Kinetic.
I'm not even thinking of that. It's the crystal.
Hmm.
The original Timexes, they had the crystal in there, so it never, you never wound it or anything, but it was a crystal. It's
Oh,
it's a
quartz.
piezoelectric. It's
Quartz,
piezoelectric
yeah.
is what it's called.
Interesting.
Wow.
Well, I mean, look at your heart. Basically, that's what that does.
God frequency.
Yeah, but the point is, it's perpetual all the time that you're alive. It doesn't stop and take a rest and say, look, I gotta have a 45-minute break now. It's my time.
Right.
So, you know, that, I mean, they can key it to the breath, but no matter how you cut it, you're not having to go in and to a charger station and plug yourself in. You need to take a break and take a rest, obviously, on a 24-hour period usually. But this thing just keeps being charged. I mean, you do have to feed it, give it some water to create the force, but even so, there's something stronger than that which sustains. It's what we consider the first ray energy, but it's that will that's part of that, descriptive of that. It's that will, it's that energy, and it's that same energy that preserves that soul in place, and that has the capacity to preserve all of those vibrations and experiences, that until you can get to that point where you can interact consciously with that soul and get all that information, then it's in you. And that construct, and that's what I'm saying, is that soul was a construct put there because you needed a leg up. You needed help to get to that point, to be able to make that connection up to spiritual man. And if that soul wasn't there, and if it wasn't able to collect those things each time and preserve them and collectively for eons of time, if need be, that's the quality of that first ray, has the ability to do that, then all you would be doing is Sisyphus rolling each lifetime up and down the hill, starting over all the time. But once you've interacted and consciously now have had that exchange with what's in that soul, which is in during the third initiation, at the fourth, you give up the soul. I mean, there's the destruction of the causa body because you don't need it anymore. So it was put there to be, like I said, kind of leg up while you're having all these experiences, and it takes a long time and a lot of lifetimes, and all that goes in the reservoir until you can get there. Because once you can get there, then you're you're going to go make a connection with that the physical atom on the mental plane. And that's the bottom of the spiritual triad. So you're connected. And then you're on your own, in as much as it's all you and your consciousness. And you, Donnie, had a quote from somebody about how you materialize. I take it that it was the Maya Varupa. Do you remember it? You should mention it. You said that they materialize their form, and then our opticals read it,
Right.
and give them the form that they've materialized. And Maya Varupa is when somebody who is a master creates a body to come down and function in the lower three realms with, because he'd given up his body at some point. All right. And so you picked that up out of some book somewhere.
It's actually in White Magic. I think it's just a little bit further down the road.
Is that it? Okay.
Yeah. I believe so.
Melinda, what do you think?
About which part? There's
Any
a lot.
part. Pick the
Oh,
one you,
Dude,
I don't even know where to begin. I mean, I don't know. It's a lot, but I mean, I don't know. I don't know what I think. I think a
Okay.
lot. Yeah, just like that we're on a journey and we're here picking up vibes and trying to move up. Got to build that bridge. But I mean, I guess I kind of just, I don't know. Like, I know we're here to, gather information and move forward. Like, I feel like it's kind of a dick thing. Like, I feel like I've known that for since I was a kid. Like, we're here for a reason. And even if you don't know specifically what that reason is, like, I feel like I've always known, like, I'm here to try to pick up specific information and gather all of that, even if I'm not really sure that I'm doing that or that I'm getting the right information. Like, I still need to be putting myself out there and trying to get those experiences, no matter how uncomfortable they are, which most of the time they're extremely uncomfortable, and I freaking hate change. So that's the big one for me, how everything's constantly changing, and just trying to figure all that out. To me, I'm obviously you're supposed to be picking up that energy and collecting it inside you and holding it, so that, because that's the only thing you're taking with you when you leave here, bro.
but
When you move
but
on.
yeah, but understand, you don't even have to work at that in terms of holding it, because they now know, and this thing's Lipton elucidated, is you've got the receptors for all of that on all of those cell membranes, and they now know that there's actually overwrites on the DNA that are occurring. They're just they're there. They're not anything.
It's like
you have-
inscribing itself on you.
It what?
It's inscribed, it's, is that the right word? Inscribing itself on you.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's a
It
part of your, how, we read light.
Right.
So it's becoming a part of that thread. That's,
Yeah,
that's
it's
what I-
so you
Yeah.
don't have to work too hard at
well,
physically having to make sure
some
none
of
of
us
it.
like to work hard.
But,
More
yeah,
stubborn than others.
you can do
I
it.
feel like Dottie and I are
Yeah.
I just like to
Well-
make things more difficult than they need to be.
Yeah, and just getting this information into your mind, then your mind works on it.
Right. Well,
You
and
know.
then that was I know some people are I have to help everyone. It's no, if you just drop little hints here or there, or just lead by example, be that change that you want to see in the world, they'll pick it up. You don't have to force feed it to them. They'll figure it out. You don't have to go out and really push it. Just, if they ask about I've noticed even with myself, even just yesterday, just dropping little hints here and there in a conversation about, just different things that we've talked about, but not hey, guess what? But just having a conversation, just a little sprinkle of
Sure.
yeah. And even yesterday, one of the girls was huh. And I was yeah. And then I just moved on. I didn't elaborate or anything like that. But you could see her go, I never thought of it that way or whatever. And I'm yeah. That was it. I don't push any more than that.
Yeah, no, and that's the best way to do it, because
Yeah.
the brain is hungry for this.
Yeah.
See, the brain, this is what the brain is waiting for. Be it the soul, if you will, and it works through the brain, and it's waiting for that kind of information so that it can start working in this area.
Right.
But the consciousness needs one part of it so it can go get the matching other part. There always has to be the symmetry. It's the invocation, evocation. So even dropping just those little things, it's going to start something percolating in their own brain.
Yeah. Like little breadcrumbs.
Yeah, right. Yeah. You don't have to give them the whole loaf. You just, Donnie's got the loaves over there.
I'll just start passing out business cards with Donnie's number on it. You want to learn something cool? I know a guy.
Right.
I would never do that. Keep you all to myself, and you and you and you and you.
It's a hard lesson. Hey, but you know, what did Jesus say? Feed my sheep.
What do you say?
Feed my sheep.
I thought that's what you said. Feed my sheep.
Yep. All right.
I actually just wrote down feed your heart. It's pretty funny.
Mm-hmm.
That's funny.
I haven't heard much out of Bull today.
Oh, that's because I was on mute. No. I just, as I listen to all the conversations and everything else that we've gone over today, I think back to like Superman, how he had like the Cave of Solitude and all the crystals with all the history of everything, you know, on there. And I don't know, I wish I had a Chamber of Solitude that had like all my past visits here, you know, so I could go over and be like, okay, I covered down that pretty good, and you know, but I need to look at, you know, this, that, and the other thing that I did, you know, just to kind of formulate a plan. Like I feel like we came here and like every time like we showed with a huge case of amnesia and we got to figure it out. So I don't know, I'd like to have the history of my consciousness to kind of look back through to figure out where I've been, you know, like where I need to go and, you know, like what stuff I need to concentrate on.
Well, the way you do that is you've got to work your way through the third initiation, and that's when you actually do that. Okay.
Then you'll be inside your cave, bro.
And by that time, then you won't need any of that information anymore in the way that you think you need it right now, because you will have you'll have absorbed it, and you'll be on your way somewhere else. But anyway, so the bottom line is just the key to that is you're just going to have to do concentrate on some of this material, go through the raising initiations and start going through the elucidation he does on all the various initiations, because it's the third one that'll allow you to do what you want to do, but not for the reason you want to do it. You want to do it at this point because you think there's something you're missing. By the time you get there, you'll realize you're not. Okay. But that's it. Yeah, you just want an easy way out.
Oh no, I just think it'd be cool to see the journey and, you know, kind of figure out where I am in that journey based upon the, you know, past times.
Yeah, well, that you do see that at the third, so you'll see right where you've been on this journey. So now you know which book to start with.
I think you'll get it when you're ready for it, Bull. Something tells me
Ready
that
now.
before we're there, well, I'm saying I don't know personally. I don't know that I'm there yet, and I don't know that I want to know all that right now because I feel like it would drive me crazy. But when I'm ready for it, I'll be ready for it. That's kind of how I approach it.
Well, that's the only way to approach it.
I think that's a figure 8, isn't it? Tom,
What's that?
isn't that a figure 8?
Like the
Didn't you
infinity
just-
path? Yeah. Did I?
Yeah, what you just described was really, if you did it geometrically described it, you'd have a figure 8. You'd be right back where you started from before you started. So you just have to do the work.
Yep. No getting out of the work.
Well, at least we're finding out what the work is now.
Right.
Yeah, and that's really important. And what's really missing for the world right now is what the work really is. Yeah. We have service to this planet, but like I said, it's not just cleaning up the garbage.
Right.
It's in the realms of consciousness and our creation of it. Because you realize that all the good, I mean, it's another article, a short article I'm going to write is, where does good come from? Good comes from every bit of that chart that's above wherever you are. Okay. You're not supposed to backtrack and go back down, you know, because it's all relative, but your future is above you, but that's also where the energy for good is up there.
Yeah, that's outlined in this book too, and that was on specifically in Rule 11 later on. It gets really deep into this work on changing our own thought forms and working on building thought forms, and then how to respond to others' corrupted thought forms with basically infusing them with love that we've, you know, with love, which is the second aspect, right? So
yeah, it's the second aspect. It's the union of spirit and matter. That's what love really is, the union of spirit and matter. It's the positive and the negative coming together and creates consciousness. In a nutshell, abstracted off of the astral plane. Yeah. And that's why the Buddhic plane is the plane of pure reason, which isn't it, and it's considered an emotional plane. It's a second ray plane, but it's pure reason. So I mean, first of all, you got the astral plane 6, because the 246 line is the consciousness line. So you got the astral plane, which you got every emotional thing imaginable in there that's being tried and experimented and imagined and so on and so forth. No limitations whatsoever because it's unprincipled matter. Okay. So, you know, you get lots of crap going on there. Then you go through a mental level again. The 1, 3, 5, 7 are more the mental realms, and the 2, 4, 6 is the emotional. So you get up to the Buddhic plane and it's pure reason. Well, I mean, wouldn't you have thought reason was on the mental plane? But now we got pure reason. I mean, it's so what I'm saying is our concept of love is all astral at this point. That's where we form our opinions and attitudes about it. But it's a whole different thing. But if you really abstract it, it's the union of spirit and matter. It's the positive and the negative coming together, and it creates that consciousness all the way up there. And that is actually very descriptive of love. Okay. So it's, you know, it throws some curves at us that we're used to thinking in other terms, but when you start moving on up, you get something else. So amazing.
It is.
Franco, I'd like to hear your articulate brain thoughts.
You know, it's just another tool in the toolbox, right? Just I like listening to everyone else's perceptions. I mean, it seems like we're all in line with going the same direction. So that's kind of cool to be a part of a group that's going the same direction. You know, I sit here and I try to figure out an easier way to break it down. So if I can understand it from your language, I can convey that to my children, who I think are very much in tune with their mystical side, the side that nobody teaches them about, or the side that we weren't even really taught about, except that only it came in the form of Christ. And then you find out that you are Christ-like. And, you know, I don't know. That's kind of where our mind's at right now. You're just taking it all in and trying to learn how to convey that to smaller minds, open minds, purest form, not convoluted with the daily grind and of victimhood and wokeness, you know. So it's cool that I can put that information in someone's head that's not as convoluted as my own.
And you know, all these books are online, so you can always download them.
I've just bought them all so I can have them in my own collection, and one day my legacy of grandchildren, hopefully I'll have those one day. We'll see them and want to pick it up, you know, because I don't know if the internet will be there when later on. So I just kind of bought my own on eBay, pretty cheap.
Yeah, good. It takes a little while to be able to figure out how to communicate the material, but it, because like I said, a lot of the terms are Eastern, and rightfully so, because that's who was collecting all this information for a lot longer than we in the West have been. I mean, look at, we got a country that's only 200 years old. You got some countries in the East that have a few thousand under their belt.
And then that's the other thing, right? You're talking about countries, and you figure out what is a country, you know, like the Native Americans of this land have always said, you don't own the land. No one owns the land. The creator owns the land, you know? And so it becomes that whole, where do we draw lines at? How do we get to this point? And it's by man's design, you know, I don't know. It's really weird.
Yeah, and we come out depending upon where we were born. There, I mean, there's collective information and culture and so on and so forth in different sections of the planet also. So, you know, there's a lot to that one that we haven't gotten through to, but anyway.
May I throw some positive news out? Well, it's all positive, I guess. I read something this week in The Inner Side of History by Charles Dumont that said the shift for awakening went from the east to the west. And one of the keys to our growth is our ability to contemplate business practices here in the United States. And when I thought about that, when you think about all the tension that we have in business and how hard it is to get ahead and how deep you have to really go, that really makes a lot of sense. Like we have a lot of tension in the United States and everything is here. And, we have to struggle to get ahead and stay successful here. And that is in itself helping us also push ahead into the mental plane, I'm sure. So that was, it's not all about meditation and sitting. It's the contemplation that we're doing is still doing it daily. So Tom being an accountant with $1 billion, budget is causing his brain daily to go super deep into, and it's pushing him ahead. It's the work is happening,
You haven't read that little section? It's got to be in the beginning of one of these books where he says anybody like who does a business or something, or he had other descriptions of things too, is just as doing the development as somebody who's pursuing that initiatory path. In other words,
Yeah. Bull and his crazy futures projects, and it's unbelievable. We have another friend, Kevin Carpenter, who almost everybody knows. They're doing top, pushing the limits on technology, basically. So really, just awesome.
Yeah, it's not all about just going in and meditating, so on and so forth. Not at all. It's development.
Just another perspective, for somebody who thinks potentially that, meditation is the only way, or it's just good news as far as I'm concerned. It's another way to look at the people around us too, going, hey, they're doing the work. They just really don't realize it,
Oh, absolutely. Like for me, like I pray for my meditation, but even in prayer, it becomes almost like a background hum or another frequency, which technically it is a frequency. If I catch my mind wandering, I force it to wander on something that I want to manifest. And then within a day or two, or sometimes even within a week, I get my symbol, I get my sign as my answer that I was looking for during my meditation. So, I mean, you're always producing something inside yourself while you're doing it, like come with numbers or people pushing technology. You're never really focused on that number itself. And if you are, your mind is subconsciously wandering anyways. So that's the time you want to really manifest something and say, hey, universe or creator, this is what I'm telling you right now. And this is what I'm looking for. You're not asking it, you're telling it, right?
Well, and that's a lot of the invocation, evocation process, right, Carla?
Right. Yeah, that'll be the new science that he talks about for this upcoming age. That's why when I'm saying when you read some of this material and your brain gets it, then it goes out and gets the counterpart or more information related to it and draws it back to you. You don't have to do anything at that part. You just do your invoking. It evokes more material. Now, I think, Tom, the last time you were here, I ended up rereading something, and you had indicated that even in the week difference or whatever the time frame was, would have been short, that material looked a lot different, or you had more understanding of it or something. In other words, that you look at this material a week later and you say, well, I don't remember reading this or that, because it's just filling in.
Yeah, I think it was, it's just like you can perceive it differently if there's timing in between when you read it and how it kind of like interacts with what you might have going on any particular day. I think that's kind of what I was getting at before. Because you look at something now and you roll deep in it, but it might have a different impact on you a couple of weeks later when you read it again, because you're going through a different scenario at that point in time. All in how you interpret it.
Yeah. No, a lot of times and like I said, the brain just goes, but that's his, that is his, like he said, the new, I don't know what he really called it, the new science of learning or something is just invoking it. And that's a little bit about what Franco was talking about, and it's going to show up Teilhard Chardin, some of his books elucidate some of that. He was stuck in China during World War II. And very much went on a spiritual journey. That's why they wanted him to leave the Jesuits, but he wouldn't go. So,
We did 3 hours.
yep.
Look at me, I was supposed to leave an hour ago and I'm still here.
Yeah.
I was about to say, has it been 4 minutes yet?
Yeah, I said I have 4 and I gave you an hour and 4.
Well, we could go another hour just for you.
We probably could, but I think my spousal unit needs me to get the car packed so we can get on the road here shortly. So, and I
full.
haven't had breakfast yet today, so I'm
I
running.
haven't. I gotta feed my kid.
on-
I'm glad he slept late.
So,
Okay.
All right, y'all.
All right, I'm gonna end the recording for today.
Okay. All right.
Thank you, guys.
All right.
See
Yeah,
y'all
until
next
next week.
Have a good trip.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
We'll be